Time once again for the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, Soren Petro. We will talk about Ruben Bane, how his accident back in his past with careless driving charges will affect his draft status, how it's been reported on. We'll also talk about one of the bigger stories in the NFL that has nothing to do with football, but the resignation of Diana Russini from The Athletic, that happening today. We'll get to our real first-round picks. Who do we have at each one of the positions that we think are actually really first rounders? Is Bane still one of those guys? Any D tackles make sense? How many corners, wideouts, the offensive tackles? Who was really a first round draft pick? We're talking about it right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running, guys, talking about our real first-round picks. Let's start with the news that came out about Ruben Bane, involved in an accident a couple of years ago, charged with careless driving, and it resulted in an individual being killed, ultimately, left in a coma, tragic situation, left in a coma. We've seen the parents even respond, an amazing response, by the way, I would say, from the family of the victim. Now the question is, what does this mean for his draft status? How does it affect it? We also want to talk about some of the ways it's being reported. Jeff, why don't you lead us off? What do you think about what this means for Ruben Drones and his draft status?
Well, just from what I've read, the details are murky, so we don't have all the information. I don't think it's going to affect it that much. Maybe with the Chiefs it will, because if he's available to them, I think it's a different situation here because of what happened with Rashee Rice. But it sounds as if, just from hearing people talk about this, that NFL teams are aware of it, and that people are acting as if it's been handled in a way that they are okay with. And so given his talents, given his production in college, I don't think it's going to be the same kind of scarlet letter that other players might wear. But yeah, I think if you're the Chiefs, this is a tough sell to your fan base. And so I'm sure there are going to be some teams that are going to say we probably would not take him with a top 10 pick, for example, given what's happened. But I think there's probably a lot more teams who are probably comfortable with this. And to be honest with you, it may have gotten out for that very reason.
Yeah. What do you think, Sam? What does this do? I agree definitely with Jeff. I think it's a really tough sell for the Chiefs, who may not have been on him at all anytime early in this draft because of the arm length. But if you're going to step to a podium and talk about how you're taking serious what's going on with, Rashee Rice, and this is something you're not going to tolerate, and you jump right back in, that would seem to be at least a bad look at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe it should affect the Chiefs more than anybody. But also, I mean, look, what the three of us might think about this story compared to what teams think about this story are probably different things. I mean, teams view these situations as, is this going to be a problem for us moving forward? And is it indicative of a character issue? And therefore, is it going to be a problem moving forward? Or is this just going to draw such unwarranted attention on us that that's going to be the problem moving forward? The Chiefs have the potential to fall into the second bucket. The first bucket is up to the teams to learn based on interviews with the kid, but also interviews about him, through the way we as reporters create sources, that's what scouts are trained to do as well, to try and get as much intel as they can on the prospects. And it's up to each individual team to try and learn about more what happened here. There is a really wide spectrum of this incident. No matter what, this is a situation that's just really sad. But as far as like actually his responsibility in it publicly, it's a wide spectrum. The reason I say that is because, he was never charged criminally. It doesn't look great when it's a 4 a.m. incident, when I don't know what it means when there's no field sobriety test, if that's because they didn't need to be, it didn't happen to be. From what I've read, it doesn't seem like he was speeding in the incident. Like, this could have been a really unfortunate event for the driver as well. Or it could be the other end of the spectrum too. Like, that's the information that we don't know that the teams have to know by now. But I will say, the thing about it's been handled, because that was some of the wording that we exchanged in our text group among a tweet. And look, people can phrase things the wrong way. That bothered me, because this is a death of, there's a family without a person here that obviously is a loved one who I'm sure meant the world to them. And I'm not crazy about the fact that story gets lost in this.
Yeah, I think, number one, it was careless driving and not reckless driving. I mean, that's an important distinction to make. But it was careless driving and not a no-fault accident either. I mean, there was, that was part of the equation, and a human life was lost. And so, this is not a joke thing, and this is not the kind of thing that you just belittle those that bring it up or report it, which is a little bit of what I kind of saw out there.
I agree.
I just, Sam, I know you had some of the, you were pretty hot on this as we were exchanging tweets, and I agree. Like, the idea that anybody reporting on this is out of line because the NFL teams might know, I would ask you to take your nose out of the ass of all of the NFL general managers out there and whoever's trying to tell you that it doesn't matter, and use some judgment on your own, because it does matter. It is of note, and it matters. It is a significant story, and it's a significant story in Ruben Bane's life, but also in other people's life, and it deserves to see the light of day for everybody, not just on some secret report on a general manager's desk.
Yeah, I totally agree. And look, I just don't like the sentiment after something like this gets reported, to where the response from so many was, I knew about this. I didn't report it, but I knew about this. And I mean, look, the three of us are in media. We know a lot more than we're able to report. But you don't shit on the guy who's able to get it on the record, because that is a significant hurdle in a lot of our jobs. I'll give you just a quick example that just came to mind. So I can't remember whether it was July or August, I reported on Andy Reid's office being shot up by a bullet going through his office. That had happened a year earlier. I knew about that like a month after it happened. Never could get, it just took that long to be able to get somebody to tell me this, to where it was reportable for me. Like, that gap does happen. But if somebody else had reported in the meantime, I would have been pissed, because I would have said, dang it, I wish I had that story because I had known about it. But I wouldn't shit on the reporter for reporting it. It's kudos to that reporter for being able to get it on the record. Like, that is a significant part of the job. It's not just knowing it, it's being able to report what you know. And I just don't like the sentiment of, oh, hey, I knew about this. This is old news to me. Well, it's not old news to the rest of us, because I didn't know about it. And all of us who have these very conversations about players didn't know about this either.
Yeah, and it just speaks to, and I've said this for years, and it's gotten worse with the advancement of social media. There's so many people out there who, on the outside, think they know what's happening, and there's so many people on the inside who feel like their job is to create guardrails or to be gatekeepers. And Todd McShay, who we're talking about specifically, who's one of the guys who made the comments about this has been out there and teams know about it. And the problem is, people get so caught up in that echo chamber within the draft world, and they don't realize that these are real people who are affected by what happens, by what these guys do. And we are reaching a point where we're becoming so desensitized to it. I mean, how many guys from Georgia have been involved in car racing incidents, and and it's just kind of like, oh, that's what they do. You get that mentality about that's just how they are down there. And it is a real thing when you're bringing people into your locker room, and you're trying to figure out if they can actually live up to what you're paying them, live up to that responsibility of being pro athletes. And so, yeah, I'm with you. Again, it's the thing about Bane, to bring it back to him, is that it does seem like he's been a model citizen and a leader and a guy who's not had character issues, which is what I try to lean on in these situations, because the details are so sparse. And without knowing that, it's hard to pass judgment on what actually happened that night with him. Now, he's got another one too, right? He's got two careless driving incidents, but
and I think that's the point, is that one didn't teach the lesson.
Yeah.
And one of the careless driving moments resulted in somebody losing their life. And that is, that's a thing, particularly when you've already got it going on. I do agree. I think it is a big problem at Georgia, a really big problem. They think it's a big problem down there, at least the people around the program. I'm not saying in the program, they may not. They clearly have not been able to curb it. I don't want to say that they don't care inside the program. I don't know what they're actually doing, but they clearly have a culture issue. And that's the point, is like, if you are careless and you get, how far, we don't even have to go back far. The Chiefs had a coach who was careless. I know alcohol was involved, and that's everyone's like, well, alcohol wasn't involved. Yes, but there was still an accident that resulted in somebody's death. And, when you're getting ready for the Super Bowl and someone's careless and results in an accident, someone getting, causing someone to be killed, that's a problem for the organization. It may not be, it's not somebody who, it's not the Jovan Belcher situation or the Ray Caruth situation, but it is not a positive. No. And you talk about football being important to somebody. Most people think of it as the tough guy part of the equation, where it's like, okay, go out and fight through injury and do all that. But it's also don't do stupid things. Don't get yourself, into situations and the organization into situations that takes us away from focusing on football. Right? That's the football's important part. And I definitely think he's the workout guy, the tough guy, the try hard, the work at his craft and do all that. But when he walks away from the gym and walks away from the practice field and the film room, and then it's just like, well, I'm not really paying attention to things, that could be a problem.
So, well, and as someone who's covered police at the start of my career, I know that the other part of this too is that somebody buried this within the police department for some kind of reason. I don't know how special the kid was when it happened. It was 2 years ago, right? He was a sophomore or a freshman turned into a sophomore. And so that has to be called into question too. But people like McShay who are defending this, as teams know about this. Yeah, I'm sure every team knows about this because they have all kinds of people who have police backgrounds investigating this stuff. But the problem is, if you don't know as the public, when you're bringing these guys in and you're celebrating how great they are and talking a great story about their character and this and that, do everything right, well, that doesn't mesh. We should know this stuff about Ruben Bane and George Pickens or Jalen Carter, whoever it is, because it does make a difference when you're going out and buying their jerseys and showing up and paying money for the seats. That's part of this too. And sometimes NFL people lose track of that.
Yeah, a couple of things. Jamar said, this was the comments I was talking about. The family said they don't even want to talk about it. Oh, and they wish Bane the best. I mean, they didn't say we don't want to talk about it. They said we want people to respect our privacy. Yeah. But I think your sentiment, Jamar, I get what it is. And I think that is a part of the equation as well. Jason said, the Chiefs knew Rice shot up a car at SMU and drafted him anyway. Let's not act like they're holier than thou. I don't think any of us are acting like what we think the Chiefs are going to do. We're telling you what we think they ought to do. If they like him, he'll be available. They will take him. I'm not completely convinced. The liking him part could be a bigger part of the equation. Like I said, if he doesn't fit their standards of what they want. And then Jeremy said, thank you guys for having a real and important conversation on this. We try. And Terry, is it Clark Hunt's call? Might be. I mean, I think that's when you're going to have to run by him. He's going to want to know. I mean, he's going to be in the room no matter what. And I'm pretty sure he's briefed on what the first round is going to be no matter what. But yeah, it may ultimately come down to what he wants to have done and how he wants his organization represented. All right, I want to get to one more thing before we get to our real first round picks. We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Concrete season is in full swing and asphalt paving is revving up. So right now is the time to get your property on the schedule with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Whether you need new concrete work, a parking lot repaved, crack filling, seal coating, or full asphalt installation, their experienced crews handle it all right here in Kansas City. Don't wait until the rush hits. Call today for a free bid and secure your spot before the calendar fills up. Get the process started right now at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, today the Diana Russini story took another turn as she resigned from The Athletic. I'm not going to read the release she had, but this is where it ultimately landed. Both of you know Diana Russini. Just your thoughts on how this ended up playing out, Sam, on well, you know, from beginning to end, from the release of the pictures, the way it was covered, and now ultimately ending with her resigning, or at least this next chapter. I thought that one of the things in the release may have hinted towards a lawsuit when she references leaks that were coming out from The Athletic, but we'll see what happens. Time will tell. Just your reaction to everything, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, another situation where I just think that the top thing is it's a sad story because of those affected. I mean, both of these people involved have families. I mean, look, I don't know what happened here, but I do know, like, those pictures don't look great.
Right.
And it certainly has the appearance of the potential of something immoral. And I think even more than the appearance, I think it looks closer to obvious of something that's like journalistically unethical. And so, and obviously the potential for something really unethical, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like not great ways that information comes out. And I know that's probably what Jeff wants to speak to. So maybe I should leave it there, but I know this is a story that a lot of people have had fun with, and look, I get that side of it, but like I said, my top line on this has always been, man, both of these people have families, and I feel for those people involved.
They do have. It's got a lot of layers to it because they do have families. They are human beings. They also are public figures. And
well, I'm not talking about. I don't think that it's inappropriate that they're in the limelight for this.
Right.
But there's some bystanders in this situation.
Right. Significant others in the other family. Yeah.
And the kids. Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to clarify their part of where it is. Jeff, your thoughts?
Oh, I just think, I think as it relates to the Ruben Bane situation, I go back to what I was saying earlier about how information is handled in this business. And it's changed a lot, I think, in the last 10 to 20 years as far as what insiders, how they get information, how they disseminate it, what kind of relationships they have to get that. I don't know. The thing about Diana, and I've known her for a while, is I think especially I teach classes, and I would tell any woman, any female student, you can't be in a situation like that with a guy. It's not right. It's hypocritical. There's plenty of guys who can go out and have drinks and have dinner, and it's with a coach or a player, it's not going to look weird. But when it's a woman doing it, you get a different response. And people don't change the way they feel about it once they see it. And so that's the first thing I would say about that. But I think it also speaks to just if people actually saw how the sausage gets made in the insider world, I think they'd be stunned. And the part about Diana's situation that I do think is hypocritical is there are a lot of guys in this business who do a lot of shady stuff to get information and get a lot of shady relationships. And they will be buddies with guys and they won't report on things that happen. There's plenty of dudes I know. I even go back to the New Orleans Saints Bountygate deal. And there were a lot of people who were tight with Sean Payton and Greg Williams at that time who weren't writing anything about that and saying because they didn't want to burn bridges. And so that's a big part of this is that, people have to do all kinds of stuff to get information. And I'm not saying what she did was right. I don't know all the details about it, but I do understand that culture. There's a lot of people bending the rules and living in the gray areas. And I just some of those people I just don't think are journalists. I think they're just people who are trading information like on Wall Street.
Yeah.
It's bartering. It's not journalism.
I had a general manager tell me about one of the information guys who he said when I first got the GM job, he said the guy called me and I took his call and he's like, okay, do you play the game? And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, if you tell me something, I'll tell you something about another team. And he was just actively saying, I will give you information about other teams, but I need you to give me things that I can go use, that I can put out there. And I was like, wow, really? And they're like, yeah, that's how it works. And so I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So that's part of the equation. We've talked a lot here about the agents. You kind of have to serve the agents, put out every little signing that they have, even if it's not really newsworthy. So that then when they do have a big signing, you can put it out there. That pretty much the agents put all this information out there. And so
you don't have to. It still is a choice.
You're right. Right.
Yeah.
If you're going to keep getting the information, that's what they expect you to do.
Yeah. But I really think social media has watered down journalism and just the way it's viewed. I don't view that as journalism either. I mean, there was a tweet from one of the insiders last week that was basically taking the Chicago Bears' threat to leave Arlington Heights or leave behind Illinois. Was if Arlington Heights doesn't come up with, an offer in the next 2 weeks, they're gone. And it's just like, you haven't covered this story at all. This is just a threat from the team. And we know, look, maybe that's just because I'm sensitive. We've covered the stadium issue for 5 years now. I've spent my entire day today covering stadium issues again. But it's just, that's not journalism. I mean, that's not, I guess what I would say to cap this is we all just place our guardrails in a different spot, I think. And to me, that is what has blurred the line between, as Jeff called, I think Jeff had a great analogy. It's more like trading information on Wall Street as opposed to maybe the journalism that I was taught and that Jeff teaches in his classes.
Yeah. I listen, I think her contract was up in June, she said in her statement. I think it was clear that they were going to walk at that time. It just was the expectation I had of it. And I think, The Athletic, which is owned by the Wall Street Journal, has a certain way that they want you to do things. And if you sign
New York Times, it's owned by the New York Times.
Or New York Times. I'm sorry. What did I say? The Wall Street Journal. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
New York Times. Yes. Owned by the New York Times. They have, I'm sure a handbook, a part of a standard contract that you sign. And, I think
they were pretty wishy-washy on this situation too. I mean, they had three different stories on this.
They were at first, and then they kept going.
They were quoting sources in their own publication, which I don't think I've ever seen before.
No. Well, and that is, and how much
sources say this is how the Athletic view. I've just never seen something like that before.
Yeah, it's because I think the New York Times still sees the Athletic as not the New York Times, even though they own it and want to generate the revenue. So they want to see a different situation. Yeah, I think it was. Listen, it was. I think it'll be interesting to see what comes next. I would just ask this: will she have a similar job covering the NFL moving forward?
Oh, I don't think so. I think her career's over doing that. I mean, it may be something peripheral to the NFL, but being an insider, it's hard to. I mean, there's so few national jobs already out there doing what she was doing, and I know a lot of really talented people who have been insiders who are out doing their own podcasts now or doing Substack type stuff. It's just a hard business to keep going in when you've gone through something like this.
All right, Sam, what do you think?
I don't know. I would refer to Jeff to that. I've worked for the Kansas City Star for a long time. I'm certainly familiar with a lot of the national publications. I follow them. I follow the journalism world, but Jeff works more in that world than I do. I think he's got a better feel for that.
Let's talk about our real first-round picks. Let's first divulge how many we have. Can I make a wager? I will have the most.
Well, given that you said about how many receivers you got, I'm sure you definitely are.
That's exactly my there. Thought. Once I heard your number of receivers, I was like, "You've got more first rounders than I do."
I'll tell you why when we get there. Jeff, how many you got?
I've got 15.
Okay. Sam,
I've got 13.
I've got 76. No, I just hit me that I didn't count. I have 2, 4, 6, 8.
You
10,
asked the question.
14, 16, 18, 20. I have 20.
Wow.
I have 20.
This draft is completely different in
think.
Soren's eyes.
Look, just because I had the fewest, I'll explain. I do think that the second round talent is as good as it usually is. I don't know that and I think a lot of these guys that are going to go late first round are usually just like second rounders, and then the rest of the second rounders are also usually second rounders. I feel like you've got like 45 second rounders in this draft.
When I first started talking about what a real first rounder was, I feel like it was actually a unique statement. It was actually in 1994 after sitting in Carl Peterson's office was the first.
You think you coined it?
No, I don't think I coined it. I quoted it. It was Carl Peterson's comment. So I absolutely did not coin it. Carl Peterson told it to me. He was the first one to bring it up. I'd never given it any thought, right? It was like, you have 32 teams, 32 first rounders. There's 32 first rounders. And in talking to him about the draft that year, he was going through things. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. And then, I remember talking to guys like, Terry Bradway and Bill Kuharek and, guys that have run drafts and the different ways that they do it, whether it's a numeric scale and all these different things. And there are different ways to do it. I've talked to other people that are in the league today and just how they go about quantifying it. And, I do think it's interesting. I also think, though, that there is an element of CYA that has come with it. I think that, I don't know if Carl Peterson was the first, but if it just started at that time, or if that's something they've talked about since the 1950s, whenever the draft first began, I have no idea. But I've heard it more and more. It's become much more mainstream, and now it's a thing. Every year we wait to find out how many it is, and the number gets progressively smaller every year. Okay, and so we're trending there. It seems to be more of like a cover your ass. Well, there's only 7 real first rounders, so 25 of us are off the hook if our pick sucks. I think that's I just, the more it's been out there, the more I think it gets abused and used as a way as a get out of jail free card for bad picks. There are good football players in this draft. I'll tell you what another general manager at a different sport told me not long ago. When all my people tell me, yeah, we're picking, nth, and nth minus 1 is where all the players are. He goes, it's funny, no matter where we pick, it was kind of similar to what Brett Veach said. It wasn't Brett Veach that said this, where he's like, yeah, when you're picking 32, boy, if you could just be 24, and if you're picking 9, wow, if we could be 4th or 5th. This guy told me, he goes flat out, he goes, every year, he goes, we pick 15, they tell me there's 12 guys. We pick 5 and there's only 4. And he goes, I told him, there are good players out there, find them. That's our job. And that really is resonating with me. Like, okay, I think this number gets a little, they romanticize this how few. Now, I do agree in going through with it that I don't think it's the best year to be in the top 10. I definitely agree with that. But I think there are more guys that are legitimately first rounders as we go through this than they want to let on. I will stick to my guns on that. So
you got the most.
I do have the most.
Better stick to it, yeah.
And I'm going to defend it. All right, the quarterback position, I assume we all have Fernando Mendoza, and that's it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I mean, I should pretty much expect, I should give mine, and you guys just tell me which ones are wrong. That's probably the best way. Running back, do we all have just Jeremiah Love?
That's correct too.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're down through that. So now we get to the wideouts. I'll let you boys go, because I clearly am going to have the most. How many wideouts made it for you, Jeff?
I had 3. I had Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, and Mekhi Lemon. And just to give you a sense of how I went through this, I looked at a first-round grade as, is this guy going to be a productive starter within 1 to 2 years of being in the league? Doesn't have to be all Pro Bowl level, but they've got to be someone who can contribute and be a legitimate player for a team, like a George Karlaftis. I think he would be the floor for something like this. He wasn't a true first rounder to me, but these are the guys who I think who I trust to be there. And so Lemon, I talked about him last week. I love the fact that he's a smaller guy, but he's a physical player. He's got great hands. He's good after the catch. Carnell Tate, even though I'm not in love with him, I do respect the lineage. You take an Ohio State receiver, you know what you're going to get. Most of those guys, if the worst Ohio State receiver right now in the last 5 years is Marvin Harrison Jr., you know you got a pretty good factory of wide receivers come out of there. But he's got the speed, he's got the size. He didn't run a great 40, but he does get deep. I have to assume he's going to come in and be helpful at the X position. And I think Jordan Tyson's probably the best player there, even though he's got the injury history with the blew out the ACL and the collarbone and a couple of hamstring injuries. So that he was probably the one guy I was concerned about adding to this mix. But the more I was looking at doing my research and looking at the reviews of him, I mean, this guy's return punts. When he's played, he's been an electric talent. He's got great hands. He plays X. He's a big guy. I just think that, those three guys make the most sense to me.
Okay. Sam, I'll bet you have two.
Yeah, I do have two. And look, I mean, my range when I first did this without, digging deeper into it was 13 to 17 guys. Jordan Tyson was one of those in that 14 to 17 range that I end up cutting out just because of the injury history. And all 4 of his years at Arizona State were disrupted by injuries. All 4 of them. It's not just one injury as a junior and you're hoping he comes back, because there's a guy like that on my list. It's just that, it's a collarbone, it's a hamstring injury twice, it's an ACL out for the year. There's just a lot there. I'm higher on Tate than Jeff is, although we might think similarly about his ceiling. I just think he has a higher floor than I think Jeff does. I think he has the chance to maybe be the best route runner. Like if the Chiefs drafted him at 9, I think he might be immediately their best route runner. He's also as good at tracking the ball maybe as anyone that they have in that room. He also lines up wide, which I think they would need. I do share the concerns with Jeff about the fact that, he didn't run the best 40 time. And one of the reasons that I think teams would love to draft him is he was second in the nation in 40 plus yard gains. Like those two things can be hard to equate of how that's going to translate. Lemon, I know we had this conversation about him, I think last week or maybe it was Friday or Tuesday. And I do think going back that I underestimated him a little bit because he's a better route runner than I thought. He is good after the catch, but I still don't know if I see like that extra gear from him that can make up for the fact that he's not even 6 foot. So I still got a first round grade on him, but if I was a team, I think he'd be off the board before I'd project that he would go.
All right. So I obviously have all 3 that Jeff has. So I have both of yours. And we said we'd rank them in order of by the position. So Jeff, you go Tate, Tyson, Lemon, just to be sure.
I go Tyson, Tate, Lemon.
Tyson, Tate, Lemon. Okay. Let me make a switch on that. All right.
That's just off talent, I think.
Well, but how would you pick them?
Because I'd go off talent. I think Tate's the safest pick of the 3, but I think Tyson is the best talent.
So who would you pick?
Yeah, all 3 wide receivers are on the board.
There.
Who you taking?
I'd take Tyson.
Okay. So let me switch that. So our records are pure when we go back and look at this many years.
Jeff, you and I must do incredibly well on this because we never see any receipts of this record, which I can only imagine means that we're just
we review everything.
We're cooking them. We're cooking them in these.
That's right.
Every year we go back and look at all these different things, the coach things, the quarterback things. We look at all that stuff. What are you talking about?
I've got Tate, Lemon, and then Tyson was on my next cut.
But he didn't make the first
round,
right? So he doesn't
just Tate and Lemon
on there. All right, so I went Carnell Tate because if I'm picking at 9, I can't come away with nothing. And Jordan Tyson does have injuries, but then Tyson is definitively number 2. Omar Cooper Jr. of Indiana is number 3, and Mekhi Lemon of USC is number 4.
Oh, wow.
So the guy I have that you guys don't have is Omar Cooper Jr. I think he looks kind of like a bigger Zay Flowers. I know he didn't clock as fast as Zay Flowers, but I like the way he runs through his routes. I like the way he's physical. He's like a running back with the ball afterwards, and I think the fit for Kansas City would be very good. His run after the catch is great. I think he's, like I said, he's kind of somewhere between Rashee Rice and Zay Flowers. And so I think he's a really good fit for the Chiefs. Then I have Mekhi Lemon 4th. I think Mekhi Lemon's good, but not great. I think you're going to get a good wide receiver, but I think he's going to be a number 2 his whole career at best. I don't see any upside for a 1 at all. And for Tyson, I'm closer to Jeff in the sense that certainly because you don't have him in your first round. But if Carnell Tate's gone and you are sitting and you trade back to 14 and all 3 wideouts are there, at that point, I'm thinking I can swing for the fences here. I'm going to get another pick. And I think the guy who has the chance to be the best wide receiver is Tyson. If he gets by the injuries, I've heard some people say the hamstring injury wasn't as bad, but he tried to play through it to help the team. That's what every agent tells everyone. But Sam's 100% right. The injuries, I think he's definitely the best NFL prospect that if he gets with some coaching and the right quarterback and the same quarterbacks, all things being equal, he will be the better wideout. But you can't count on it. And so I think Darnell Tate's the most polished. So I would go Tate 1, just especially picking up high. If for some reason all the wideouts were available at 29, I might change my mind and go Jordan Tyson and swing for the fences, though. I will say that, because down there it's a sketchier process. So I might try to hit the home run at 29. I think Tyson's more the home run, but I definitely think Omar Cooper is going to be a good wide receiver in the NFL, and I think he belongs in the first round.
I just to be clear, like if Tyson, someone asked this question even in our comments, if Tyson had no injury history, I would absolutely have, I'd absolutely have him as a first round grade, and I'd have him above Lemon for sure, and I might have him above Tate. I might have him the way that Jeff ranked him, but I still think Tate has a higher floor, but I absolutely would think that the Tyson, I think, had a higher ceiling. But the injury history is real. It is part of his resume, and like I said, it's the fact that it's all 4 years, and if I'm picking 9 for the first time in a decade, that's a hard sell.
By the way, Terry reminds us, Matt keeps track. So Matt will remind us. Matt does always have the scorecard. He's even shared some of them with us, which we've enjoyed. So I like that. All right, let's get tight end in here. Jeff, do you have a tight end crack in the first round?
Yeah, I think Kenyon Sadiq could end up being the best player in this draft, to be honest with you. Just his measurables and the things he can do at that position. He's super explosive. I mean, he ran an amazing 40 time for a guy his size. I mean, he's probably going to end up right around being middle of the first round pick. But in terms of just explosive, I like him better than any receiver on the board here. And he's probably, as far as offensive skill guys, right behind Jeremiah Levin as far as what he can do. And so I think I've seen the Ravens mock to him a few times. They get him with Lamar Jackson. I think it could be a home run for that offense.
Okay. But only Sadiq.
Only Sadiq.
Okay. Sam?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be the outsider on this. I don't have any first round tight ends on this. I just am not nearly as high on Sadiq as a lot of other people are. I mean, he's a 240-pound tight end. He had, I think, the 7th highest drop rate in college football a year ago. And I'm not trying to say the guy sucks, but his career best game is 96 yards. He is leaving college with never having 100 yards in a game. 11 yards per catch. Like, there's this whole thought that he's explosive with the ball. It doesn't show up in the numbers. And so I think the guy, you could make the argument that the guy's best football is ahead of him, and I'll be on board with that. But if the guy gets a 600-yard season, if he has a 100-yard game, his best football was ahead of him. I just think there's still a ways for him to go. And I'm not saying he's a bad player. I mean, I do think in this draft, he's a first-round pick. Absolutely. But
in this draft, he's going to go in the first round.
And I would pick him in the first round. He's one of the best 32 players in this draft. And that's always one of the hard things about doing these first round grades is it seems like you hate all the guys who aren't on your list. He's one of the 32 best players in this draft. But I only ranked 13 guys in first round grades, and I don't think he's one of the best 13 guys in the draft.
Okay. I do have Kenyon Sadiq. The measurables are great. The athleticism is great. Somebody's going to have to coach him. I think what Sam said is correct. I mean, if this were, year 4 of watching Shannon Sharp play, like he would go 5, right? If we hadn't just had Frank Pitts crap in his hat to a degree. I mean, they gave him a bunch of money and he's still with the Falcons and everything, but he hasn't lived
Kyle
up.
Pitts,
Kyle Pitts. He hasn't lived up to the billing of what people thought he was going to be. And so that pushes him down a little bit. I think he's going to go in the teens. I won't be shocked if he lasts longer. I think Sam's assessment of him is spot on. But I do think the measurables are there, and he was at least good enough to think that, okay, if we coach him right, and we coach him better, and we feed him the football, he can look better. Running a sub 4.4 is no joke.
Oh,
but I will tell you, the cautionary tale is Noah Fant, because Noah Fant was this guy when he came out of Iowa. However many years ago, his measurables were off the charts then. This kid's, I think, are even better, but he was this athletic freak, and he's been all right. But I mean, I think that is part of, can I say this? That one of the reasons why I've got more of these guys is part of it is not falling off the table. And those measurables mean that he will at least be a 500 or 600 yard receiver with 4 or 5 or tight end with 4 or 5 touchdowns. And that means you're not going to come away with nothing. Right. That's where I think, Sam, when you said, well, Jordan Tyson, the injuries are absolutely a part of it. You just got to love him so much that you're going to blow through the injuries and hope. But that's absolutely a part of it. But I think it's also works the other way in the sense that this kid is so athletic for that position. As long as he likes football and he's going to practice and work hard and everything, then I don't think he's going to bomb. Right.
Look, if the Chiefs picked him at 29, I would compliment him for it. But I would not have.
Oh, you take him at 9. You don't take him.
I would not
9,
pick him at. I would not have. Yeah, I would not have if they took him at 9. I'm just saying, like, there's. Look, we talked about first round grades. I think on an average year, 20 to 22 guys. And I know that kind of sounds a little bit backwards because there's 32 first round picks, but I think an average year 20, 25, somewhere in that range. And I just don't think on an average year he's a top 20 guy.
Yeah, I think.
Do you guys think he's better than the 2 tight ends in last year's draft that went in the first round, for example?
No.
Who were
no,
they?
I don't. I think he's more athletic.
Tyler Warren and Colston Love.
No.
Colston Love.
I think he would have gone third amongst the tight ends.
I agree.
Yeah. But I still think he could crack the first round last year. I mean, I think 15 to 25 is, the first round. If I had to say what's the average number, I'd say 18, 19, 20, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know. I think that's a fine debate. But like we said, for you, if we're using your board, like after 13 guys, probably after 18 picks, we're in no man's land, and so he starts to look a little bit better.
I agree
at that point. All right, offensive tackle. I'm sure I have the most on this. This has to be where I fatten up. Jeff, how many you got?
I've got 2. Francis Mauigoa was the obvious one, but Spencer Fano has been coming up, I think, from what I've seen. He's gotten a lot more buzz lately. And maybe it's false buzz, but it seems to be popping up on a lot of mock drafts really high. And just hearing people talk about it. Look, he's an athletic guy, one. He's definitely got great quickness and feet and hips and all that stuff you want to see. He's a right tackle who has played left earlier in his career. But it seems like people are talking about him like he's got a higher ceiling than Mauigoa. And I think that may be what's creating the buzz for him. But I just feel like there's too many people I respect, including Daniel Jeremiah is one of them, Lance Zierlein guys at my place, NFL Network, who have talked him up that it's hard to – he wouldn't have been on my list if I hadn't been looking for him. But his name's coming up enough times where I think he's probably my 15th best player right now.
Your guy, Lance Zierlein, who can't seem to pin down a time –
sorry, trying to get him on the radio.
I have tried a couple times, and because I like him, and I think he does a good job, and I think he's also very, very good at the offensive line. His father was an O-line coach in the NFL, wasn't he?
I didn't know that. It wouldn't surprise me. He's really a hardcore football dude. So
yeah, he is, and I think I always pay extra attention to what he puts on the offensive line. But if you chat with him, you can find.
Okay, I'll let him know you're looking for him.
Yeah, just go ahead. I'm sure that'll push it over the top. All right, Sam. Maybe you've got more than me. Do you want to give us your 6, or should I go with my 5?
I've got the same 2 as Jeff. I will say, like, I've seen both of these guys mocked to the Chiefs in different mocks, and Mauigoa makes a lot more sense to me because, like, he's going to play right tackle. I think he had the 3rd lowest pressure rate among left or right tackles in FBS last year. Fano's a little bit different because he's got short arms. Ruben Bane's not the only guy with short arms in this draft who's projected to be a first-round pick. Spencer Fano's the same way. And so I've seen some reports that, at worst he's a guard, and I'm thinking for the Chiefs, they don't need that. I mean, they don't need a guy to kick into guard. And they were down that road two years ago with a 2nd-round pick. And so I feel like I've seen his name mocked to the Chiefs as much as any individuals, not more than the field, but as much as any individual person. And I don't know that would be something that the 3 of us would be celebrating on Friday.
No, and I think you bring up an excellent point. Are we doing 1st-round picks for the Chiefs? Like does that, because I do think it changes.
No, because we have Mendoza in the 1st round, right?
Well, okay, yeah, exactly. Because I do think the Chiefs need to be more selective in what they would take. And I believe all the guys I'm going to mention, which are the two you've mentioned, and I'll just talk about the other three since that's the only thing that's different. Although I will say I think Maui Noah gets a little bit dinged because he does play just right tackle. So people are kind of dinging him on that front. But I do think for the Chiefs, you bring up an excellent point, Sam, in the sense that they can't swing and miss on the tackle and be like, well, we'll play him at guard. Like they've now filled up on that.
There's no spot. Yeah.
So if they take a tackle, he needs to be able to play tackle.
And this guy at his pro day was like taking snaps at center to prove, which like I think the one thing if you're a franchise other than the Chiefs, you'd be like, man, this guy's a team player. He's willing to go anywhere. If you are the Chiefs, you're like, that spot's taken. Like we don't have. You've got to play right tackle if the Chiefs take him.
The three that I will add to that mix are in order. I go Maui Noah 1, Spencer Fano 2, Monroe Freeling of Georgia 3, Caden Proctor of Alabama 4, and Blake Miller of Clemson 5. First of all, I don't want to. I'm stop talking about guys playing in the SEC and the ACC and big time football. If you can't watch the guys at Georgia and Alabama play against Georgia and Alabama and decide whether or not they're a goddamn first round pick. Okay. Enough. Caden Proctor has started snap after snap. Does he have flaws? Yeah. Does he have strengths? Sure. He's immense. Does he lean too much? Yeah. He's always been the biggest, strongest kid on the field. So does he need some work and technique? When are we going to fire? And I know this is a sensitive subject with Chiefs fans, but if you give Caden Proctor to an offensive line coach and he can't make him at least, like I said, in most cases, a guard if you have to bail out, but at least a right tackle, then fire his ass, okay? Because the kid is massive. He's quicker than a lot of guys that have been great in the league. He's played on the left side against NFL pass rushers in the SEC. Enough. And that's the same thing that's true of Monroe Freeling and of Blake Miller. Blake Miller's played 50-some-odd games at Clemson. They're all past the arm length test. They're all past the size test, and they've all played against big-time competition. Those three guys are going to start in the NFL. And I would venture to say that 4 of these 5 guys are going to start at tackle. You do need 64 tackles, okay? And so, like, I think we get caught up. Part of the reason also this number gets slimmed down, it's like, well, if I don't get a 10-time Pro Bowler when I call a guy a first rounder, I screwed up. No, somebody's got to play right tackle and has got to start. And if you can be an adequate starter, if you can be the 34th tackle in the league, like if you can't identify who's better than Jordan Taylor, then get out of the business, right?
Jawan Taylor.
Jawan Taylor. I'm on a roll with the first name.
Monroe Freeling was also one of those guys, just FYI, my 14 to 17 that I was debating.
And one of the things I read him being dinged on is, well, he only started for a year and a half. Well, he's at Georgia. The guys that when he first got there, he was a first-round pick. Then the guy he was the swing tackle behind, he was a first-round pick too. I mean, come on. Like, I read some of the minutia that's being written up on these guys, and I'm like, let's carry this. Well, he only started a year and a half. Okay, well, Caden Proctor started every game he was at Alabama. All of them. I think maybe he was hurt for 1 or 2 games, but otherwise he started every game. Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know if he kind of leans a little on this or that. Well, then coach him up, damn it. Coach him up is what I would say. Does anybody have a guard or center? I have a guard. I have the Penn State guard. I assume you guys don't.
Well, of course you do. We can add. I guarantee your defensive roster is not going to be nearly as big as the offense.
No, to be honest, I don't mind having him there, but didn't make my cut.
I think he's a legit first rounder because I think if you did look at one of these tackles, or if these,
hey, hold on, you struggle with first name. Say his first name.
Okay, Oleva Vega, Ione.
At the Penn State kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have a pronunciation? Do you know how to pronounce it, Sam?
I mean, I'm a writer. You're the guy who's on air.
Vega.
That's exactly right.
I think that's it. I apologize, and I would learn it if he came to the Chiefs.
We learned Kingsley Suamataia pretty quickly. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I just keep working on it, and you pronounce each vowel and all that. But I think if those 5 tackles were gone, and by the way, I think I will make a wager if anybody wants to bet me that 5 tackles don't go in the first round. I'll bet any amount that 5 tackles go in the first round. And I know that's not the point of this exercise, but I'm just saying 5 tackles will go in the first round. And I will also then make a bet. If you'd give me 3-2 odds, I might even do it for even money if I think about it, but I'd probably go that these 5 tackles all go. I think the numbers on offensive linemen is it 7.5?
I think the guard goes for sure. And I could see 5 tackles going.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel real comfortable that 5 tackles are definitely going, and these 5 tackles are going, and probably 1 or 2 others. The Arizona State tackle might make his way up in there. But if you have tackles, but you need a guard, and there's no tackle that you project to move down to guard, then taking this kid, I think he's a real first-round pick, because I think he's going to start, and he's going to play, and he's going to play at a high level. And I think that's what we're talking about here. And there are teams that he will be a good fit for when it comes to what they're going to end up doing. All right, we'll take one more break, and then we'll come back, get to the defensive side of the ball after you hear from our friends at Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is looking to grow their team. If you have heavy construction foreman experience with heavy equipment, asphalt or concrete labor, or just want to learn a new trade, contact Gann Asphalt and Concrete to join their team today. Top of the market pay, company provided insurance, and paid time off and holiday pay are just a few of the great reasons to join Gann's expanding team. Learn more about this great opportunity with Gann at GannAsphalt.com/careers. That's GannAsphalt.com/careers. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. All right, I don't know that there's any consensus defensive tackles in there. Did you guys have any defensive tackles?
No, I didn't.
I didn't either. Yeah, I thought I'd be the only one not to have any defensive tackles, but I don't.
I made a note. There are some that I think 2 are probably going to end up going. I will state something I kind of mentioned before. Caleb Banks, if you could give him a clear medical on his foot, which I think it'll be hard to do, he would be a first-round defensive tackle for me, particularly for the Kansas City Chiefs, because he really looks like the Spagnuolo guy, 6'6".
I agree.
300-plus pounds, really long arms, especially for on the defensive side of the ball. He absolutely looks like a Spags guy. If that injury holds him down to 40, the Chiefs will sprint up to hand Caleb Banks' card in there. So I have Caleb Banks in red, and there may be some scenario where I would take Caleb Banks at 29. Like if all these other guys are gone, then I would probably look long and hard at taking him at 29. So I did not count him in my 76 players that I have here, but I did want to make a special note of him. All right, how many edges for you, Jeff?
You're talking about true edges?
However you want to define it.
I got 2 because I'm counting Arvell Reese as a linebacker. I'm not so sold on him as an edge guy just yet. So I'm counting David Bailey and Ruben Bane as my 2 edges. And Bailey's the best of the bunch. You know, I know there's questions about his size, toughness, that mix, ability to deal with the run. But you're taking a guy like this to rush the passer. And that's what he does exceptionally well. He's going to play in a 3-4 system because of his size, but it just feels like he's got the production, he's got the potential, and I think he's going to be probably one of the best defensive players in this draft. And Bane, we've talked about him a lot in terms of the off-the-field stuff. You take that away, even with the arm length. I just love what he did in college. He was a one-man wrecking crew. He was a leader on a top-ranked college team that made a run at the national championship. I think he's going to be a pretty good player too. So those are my 2 guys.
Okay, he's got 2. Sam, how many do you have?
I've got 3, but I did put Reese in this group because I think that's where he'll play in the NFL. But obviously, I think
what's your order?
Well, I was going to say that I think the consensus right now is that Reese is going to go 2 overall, but I think Bailey's the best defensive player in the draft, and I think this is a situation where some teams are going to overthink it. They're going to think that he is a 3-4 guy, and I mean, the guy had a 21.3% pressure rate last year. I mean, Texas Tech had a great defense, and I think you do sometimes get concerned about the fact that there's other guys to account for there. But I think when you just turn on the tape, I mean, he's 6'4", he's fast, he's explosive, he's quick off the ball. I like I said, I think some teams could overthink it. I just think he knows how to get after the quarterback. And so I've got Bailey 1, Reese 2, and Bane 3.
And okay, so Bailey, Reese, and Bane.
Yeah.
All right, I too have 3. That'll shock you that I'm equal to the amount. Well, it'd be funny if there's anything that I have less on. I have Arvell Reese at the top, Bailey 2, and Ruben Bane 3. I think Arvell Reese, I see a guy who's really raw without almost any technique when he rushes the passer, but I also think he's got the most explosion of anybody. I think I'm really shocked at how much on a bull rush he pops Big Ten tackles and knocks them back. I mean, that's kind of like that the ability to use leverage. Creed Humphrey's a guy, you see the wrestling background, like he understands that leverage. He's also a massive guy, but like you just don't get him off balance, right? Arvell Reese takes giant guys and knocks them backwards. And so I think that element, there's a lot to work with there. I think it's a little bit of taking Javon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. I think the safer pick would be David Bailey, but I put Arvell Reese at the top of this because I think I'm leaning on the fact that a lot of personnel guys, I think, have him up there. Now, if he goes 14 and we're talking, and all of a sudden all the talking heads on draft night go, well, they're not sure what position he plays. Okay, I understand it. But my read on the room right now is that they believe he can play the edge. And when the times that he does play it, he looks really impressive athletically.
He's not going 14.
No, I don't think so.
I know you don't think so.
I mean, I think people think he's Micah Parsons 2.0, and I think that's a dangerous thing to do because Micah Parsons is such a unique player and a much faster and more explosive player. And it's also Trayvon Walker, not Javon Walker.
Trayvon Walker.
He was the Green Bay Packers receiver.
Okay. Well, but I mean, at least there was a guy.
You're in the vicinity, though.
Yeah, I'm in the vicinity. I'm on.
You got.
I mean, we'll have our strengths and weaknesses, and names have never been friends.
Yeah.
But you're having a night.
I like the Fred Potts, like Fred P. Otts. Yeah, I think that's what he was thinking with that. Yeah, exactly. I didn't know who Fred Potts was.
Exactly. All right, let's go to you for the linebackers then, Jeff.
I'll put Reese here for sure. And for what I just said, I think I saw some scouts say he's can be good at either edge or off ball. I think, but you got to pick one and build from there. And if I'm picking one, I'm picking the thing that I've seen him do the most in college. So a lot of Big Ten football, I cannot remember watching the guy dominate as a pass rusher. I'm sure he did at times to have this kind of draft stock associated with him, but it feels like he's trying to sell himself at a higher position because it's a better paying job in the NFL than it is to be an off-ball linebacker. And so I'm not buying him there, but I know he's a really damn good off-ball linebacker. And then his buddy Sonny Styles is the other guy I'll take.
Okay, so you are going to put Sonny Styles there as well. Okay, so you've got 2 linebackers. Sam?
Yeah, so I've got just Styles. So Jeff and I have the same 4 between edges and linebackers, and just having Reese in a different spot. But I mean, Styles is a guy who I do think his athleticism jumps off the tape, and I haven't seen him play as much as Jeff probably has, but he seems to also have good situational awareness. Obviously, saw his playoff game, saw the game against Michigan, and it just seems to be in the right spot quite a bit. So not crazy about taking that position in that round, but I do think he's got the kind of athleticism that can make big time plays.
Okay. I have Sonny Styles, and everything Jeff said in the previous, like first of all, when you see a 6'5" off-ball linebacker, I mean, I think that's an interesting trait to have. I think he'll be a good player, but if you can't get after the quarterback, I think he's definitely a first rounder, but later first rounder for me when it's all said and done. So I think he's going to be there. He's just too good an athlete. He's going to fly around, and he belongs in the first round for the same reason I talked about. He's going to play like that. That's, you're not going to have to worry about that. There's the floor is that he's definitely going to play and be on the field. All right, so let's go to the cornerback position. How many corners do you have, Jeff?
2. Jermon McCoy and Mansour Delane, and it seems
that
like
order.
In that order, yeah. And it seems like McCoy's gotten a lot more hype lately because he's a bigger guy. I think he's got longer arms, but that 40 time that Delane ran jumps out at you. You really 4 threes at that spot, no matter how big you are or how long your arms are, it's going to impress some folks. But I think McCoy is the more natural man cover guy. I think Delane is more comfortable in zone and has the physical skills to play man. But I think they're both pretty special.
Okay. Sam.
I've got 2 as well, but I've got them in the reverse order. I've got Delane first and then McCoy second. I mean, McCoy's one of the most interesting prospects in the entire draft because if he doesn't miss last year, we're probably talking about him as a top 5 guy, assuming that he had improved the way he did, between the previous 2 years. But I think what's interesting about both of these guys from a Chiefs perspective is they both can play press. And Delane's just a guy who, to me, makes the game that position is one of the hardest to play in the NFL, and Delane just never seems worried or bothered in that position. He seems to just make it look a lot easier than it is. I think Delane's a really good prospect, and McCoy just I think has maybe even better potential than Delane does, but there's just the unknown of the injury, and this is what I was referring to when I said when a guy's had 1 injury, he's missed all year, it does ding him for sure. But it is different than me to Tyson having 4 years interrupted by something.
Okay. I have the same 2, but I have them McCoy and Delane. I'm in the same order as Jeff. I think McCoy is the best cover guy. 40 time is important for recovery speed, but Noel Williams ran a 4.5 and change. Marcus Peters ran a 4.55. It's not everything. There's a lot more that goes into it, and I think McCoy is the best corner, and that would have been the top guy. I agree with your assessment too, Sam, that he would have been the top 10. So McCoy's the guy that I put at the top. All right. And does anybody have, I assume everybody has Caleb Downs. Is that correct? Does anybody have a second safety?
I don't.
No,
I don't either. And I can see a scenario.
You've got a long snapper, don't you, Soren?
I do.
Round us out.
I do. Yeah, I got a long snapper for sure. And 2 kickers. That's what's really weird. No, but I think I said this today about Caleb Downs. Either somebody will say that's what we need, like the Dallas Cowboys will go, we've got to have a safety, and they'll take him at 12 because they lock in. And by the way, the Cowboys are better at the draft than people realize. So everyone always tries to laugh. But they're better at the draft. And I think part of it's because they go, that guy's the best player. We're going to go do it. I do think sometimes people can, get too much into the position importance and everything. But whoever takes him will have had 6 or 7 or 8 guys that they would have taken ahead of him, and they will have all gone when he does go. I think him and Jeremiah Love. If Jeremiah Love's there at 8, 9, 10, it's the same thing. If he goes at 4, somebody's got a real vision for him. But I mean, I think Love and Downs are the 2 safest players in this first round. We know exactly they played what they're going to play. They've displayed all the skills it takes to be efficient at it at the next level. They're the 2 safest players. They're just players that are at positions that aren't necessarily the highest value. And so I think that's why they won't go in the top 5. But would you fall out of your chair if Caleb Downs went 5?
Oh, I would. Yeah, that's
Given
I think what's out there.
I think in Vegas, let me look it up. I think his over under is 9.5. Yeah, 9.5.
Yeah, I'm not predicting it. I'm just saying, would you be like, oh my God, I couldn't possibly imagine that happening?
It would have to be a trade-up situation, given who's drafting in those spots. I just think there's bigger need for those teams than safety.
Yeah, it'll be, and I think that's what it would be if you.
I honestly think of the first round grades I gave, Caleb Downs has perhaps the most potential to fall and be waiting longer than people anticipate just because of the position.
I agree. I think, well, we don't want to get into mine because I've got a guard in there. So the guard would be the guy that I think could be waiting the longest on this. If there are other tackles, then they'll go.
I don't mean that I project Downs as the final of my 13, but I'm just saying I think he could be the most surprising guy that people are like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, there it is. You've got our real first round picks. You're now ready and equipped for the NFL draft. Remember, you can always support us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They're looking to grow their team. If you have heavy construction foreman experience with heavy equipment, asphalt or concrete labor, or just want to learn a new trade, contact Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Top of the market pay, paid time off, holiday pay. They're just a few of the great reasons. Learn more at GannAsphalt.com/careers. That's GannAsphalt.com/careers. And Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's #1 injury lawyers, voted the #1 accident lawyers in Kansas City. Google 5-star rated. If you've been hurt in an accident, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. Make sure you tell them you heard about it right here on the Red, Gold, and Bold. For Sam McDowell, for Jeff Chadiha, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold.